Maya Collins stood at the control panel of her cargo ship, watching the planet below. New Terra looked peaceful from orbit with its blue oceans and green forests. She had been flying supply runs between colonies for 5 years now. It was good work, honest work, and far away from the fighting she had left behind. Her daughter Sophie sat in the co-pilot seat working on navigation problems. The girl was 12 years old and loved everything about space travel. She wanted to be a pilot like her mother someday. Maya smiled, watching her daughter's fingers move across the control screen, trying to calculate the best route to their next destination. Down on the planet, Maya's husband Greg was working at the engineering facility. Their son Danny was at the university studying to become a doctor. It was a simple life, the kind Maya had dreamed about during her years in the military. No more battles, no more death, just her family and the quiet rhythm of colony life. The alarm destroyed everything in a single moment. Red lights flashed across every screen. Sophie jumped in her seat, startled by the sudden noise. Maya's hands moved automatically, years of combat training taking over before her mind could catch up. She pulled up the sensor display and felt her blood turn cold. Ships were coming through the edge of the system, not human ships. These were Kravaxian warships, their black hulls marked with red symbols that meant death to everyone who saw them. Maya counted 20 large ships and hundreds of smaller ones. It was an invasion fleet. She grabbed the communication controls and tried to contact the planet. The channels were already full of screaming voices and emergency signals. Maya switched to the military frequency, the one she thought she would never use again. The Colonial Defense Force was trying to organize, but they only had a few small patrol ships. They would last minutes against a fleet this size. Maya tried calling Greg, no answer. She tried Danny. Nothing but static and the sounds of chaos from the planet below. Her hands were shaking now, but she forced them to be steady. Sophie needed her to be calm. The first attack came without warning. A beam of pure energy shot down from the largest Kravaxian ship. It cut through the atmosphere like a burning sword and hit the main city. Maya watched in horror as the place where 300,000 people lived simply vanished. The explosion spread out in a ring of fire, destroying everything for miles around. Sophie was screaming. Maya wanted to scream too, but she could not afford to break down. Not yet. She pushed the cargo ship's engines past their safety limits, pointing the nose toward open space. Other civilian ships were trying to escape, but the Kravaxian fighters were hunting them down one by one. A fighter locked onto them. Maya threw the ship into a spinning dive that should have torn the hull apart. The fighter's weapons missed by inches. She pulled up hard, using the planet's gravity to throw them sideways, then dove again. The fighter pilot was good, but Maya had flown combat missions for 10 years before she retired. She knew every trick, every desperate maneuver that might keep them alive. Another beam struck the planet, then another. Maya could see the atmosphere beginning to burn. 3 million people lived on New Terra. Most of them would be dead before the hour ended. She tried Greg's communicator again. Still nothing. She tried Danny. The channel was dead. A Kravaxian fighter appeared in front of them. Maya had no weapons, no shields, nothing but speed and her own skill. She rolled the ship and fired the maneuvering thrusters in a pattern that sent them tumbling sideways. The fighter's shots went wide. Maya straightened out and pushed the engines even harder. Warning lights covered her control panel, but she ignored them. They were close to the jump point now, the place where they could escape into hyperspace. 5 more minutes. Just 5 more minutes. Sophie had stopped screaming and was holding on to her seat with white knuckles. Maya wanted to comfort her daughter, but she needed both hands on the controls. 3 civilian ships exploded ahead of them. The Kravaxians were not letting anyone escape. Maya saw a gap in the enemy formation and aimed for it. A fighter turned to intercept them, but she was faster. Years of peaceful cargo runs had made her rusty, but the old instincts were coming back. She could feel the ship responding to her hands, could predict what the enemy would do before they did it. The jump point was right in front of them. Maya reached for the hyperspace controls, but a plasma bolt hit their rear shields. The ship shook violently. Alarms screamed warnings about engine damage and hull breaches. Maya did not care. She activated the jump drive and prayed it would work. The universe twisted around them as they entered hyperspace. For a moment, everything was silent. Then Sophie started crying, and Maya finally let herself look back at what they were leaving behind. New Terra was dying. The entire planet was covered in fire, its atmosphere boiling away into space. The Kravaxian fleet was still firing, making sure nothing survived. Maya stared at the image on her screen until the hyperspace jump took them too far away to see. She set the ship on automatic course toward Earth and finally let go of the controls. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to clench them into fists. Sophie climbed out of her seat and wrapped her arms around her mother. They held each other and cried. Greg was gone. Danny was gone. Everyone they knew on New Terra was gone. 3 million people had been alive that morning. Now they were ash and memories. Maya held her daughter and felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. It was not grief, not yet. Grief would come later when she had time to break down and mourn. Right now, what she felt was rage. Pure burning rage that made her want to turn the ship around and fly straight back at the Kravaxian fleet, even though it would mean certain death. The Kravaxians had made a terrible mistake. They had destroyed her family. They had taken everything she loved and burned it to nothing. They thought they were conquering another weak colony, another primitive civilization that would surrender or die. They did not know who Maya Collins was. They did not know that she had spent 10 years learning how to kill, how to fight, how to win against impossible odds. They did not know that they had just given her a reason to use every skill she had ever learned. They would learn soon enough. Maya made a silent promise to her dead husband and son. She would make the Kravaxians pay for what they had done. She would show them that humans did not break easily. She would teach them to fear the name of Earth. The cargo ship flew on through hyperspace, carrying 2 survivors toward home. Behind them, New Terra burned. Ahead of them, war was waiting. Earth looked different than Maya remembered. 5 years ago when she left, the planet had a few defense satellites and some patrol ships. Now the entire orbital space was crowded with military stations, shipyards, and weapon platforms. The peaceful homeworld she had known was preparing for war. Luna Station was packed with refugees when Maya and Sophie arrived. People from dozens of destroyed colonies filled the docking bays, all of them with the same empty look in their eyes. They had all lost everything to the Kravaxian advance. Maya saw that same look in her own reflection every time she passed a mirror. She had sent messages ahead, calling old friends from her military days. Within hours of landing, a message came through. Admiral Patricia Hayes wanted to see her immediately. Maya knew what that meant. The military wanted her back. Sophie was scared when Maya told her about the meeting. The girl had barely spoken since they escaped New Terra. She just held on to her mother and tried not to think about her father and brother. Maya promised she would be back soon, left Sophie with the refugee services people, and headed to the military headquarters. Admiral Hayes was a legend in the Earth Defense Force. She had fought in 3 major wars and earned her position through skill and courage. Her office was deep inside Luna Station, behind layers of security that showed just how serious the situation had become. The Admiral was sitting behind a desk when Maya entered. She was an older woman with gray hair and eyes that seemed to see right through people. She stood up and offered her hand. "Captain Collins," Hayes said, "I heard about New Terra, about your family. I am truly sorry." Maya shook her hand but said nothing. Words did not help with this kind of pain. "I read your service file," the Admiral continued. 10 years in the 7th Strike Wing. 42 confirmed kills. 3 medals for bravery. You were one of our best pilots before you left the military. "I had a family to take care of," Maya said quietly. "And now?" Hayes asked, and the question hung in the air between them. Maya met her eyes. "Now I want to make them pay for what they did." Hayes nodded slowly and walked to the window. Earth rotated below them, blue and beautiful and threatened by an empire that wanted to destroy it. "The Kravaxians are different from any enemy we have faced before," Hayes said. "They do not negotiate. They do not take prisoners except as slaves. Every species they have conquered either serves them or dies. They have destroyed 100 worlds and enslaved billions." "I know," Maya said. "I have read the reports from the other races." "Then you know we cannot win a straight fight. They have more ships, more soldiers, more resources. If we try to fight them the traditional way, we will lose." Hayes turned back to face her. "But we have something they do not have. We have creativity. We have the ability to adapt and change. And we have people like you who have every reason to fight." Maya waited. She knew the Admiral was building up to something. "I am putting together a special operations unit," Hayes said. "Deep strike missions behind enemy lines. We will hit their supply convoys, free their slaves, destroy their bases. We cannot beat them in open battle, so we will make them bleed with 1,000 small cuts." She paused. "I want you to lead the ground operations. Commander rank, full authority to pick your own team and plan your own missions." Maya had expected this. Part of her had been hoping for it from the moment she set course for Earth. But another part of her, the part that was still a mother, hesitated. Sophie needs me, she said. Sophie needs a future, Hayes replied. She needs to live in a galaxy where the Cravaxians do not rule everything. We have good facilities here for families. She will be safe, educated, and cared for. You will have time between missions to see her. It is more than most military families get during wartime. Maya thought about Greg and Danny. She thought about the 3 million people who died on New Terra. She thought about all the other colonies the Cravaxians had destroyed, and all the ones they would destroy if someone did not stop them. When do I start? She asked. Hayes smiled slightly. Your team assembles in 3 days. I have already pulled files on potential members. Some are people you know, most you do not. They are all volunteers, and they are all very good at what they do. What is the first mission? There is a Cravaxian logistics base in the Centauri system. They use it to supply their advanced fleet and process resources from conquered worlds. Intelligence reports say they are also holding around 2,000 human prisoners there. Hayes handed Maya a datapad. Full details are classified until you officially accept the position. Maya took the pad without looking at it. I accept. Good. Hayes extended her hand again. Welcome back, Commander Collins. Show these aliens what happens when they attack Earth. Maya left the office and made her way back to the refugee center. Sophie was waiting in their small quarters, drawing pictures of New Terra. She looked up when Maya entered, and there was fear in her eyes. You are going back to the military, Sophie said. It was not a question. Maya sat down beside her daughter and put an arm around her shoulders. Yes, there are people who need help, people trapped on Cravaxian bases and prison worlds. I am one of the few who can help them. Like Dad and Danny needed help. The question was soft, but it cut deep. Maya took a breath. Yes, like them. I could not save your father and brother. I cannot change what happened. But I can make sure it does not happen to other families. I can fight back against the ones who did this. Sophie was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Dad told me once that you were the bravest person he ever met. He said you gave up everything to keep us safe. I tried, Maya whispered. I really tried. He also said that if anything bad ever happened, you would make the bad people regret it. You would make them pay. Sophie looked up at her mother. Are you going to make them pay? Maya pulled her daughter close. Yes, I promise you I will make them pay for what they did. Every single one of them. 3 days later, Commander Maya Collins stood in the briefing room with her new team. 15 men and women, all veterans, all carrying scars from the Cravaxian War. She looked at each of them and saw the same thing in their eyes that she felt in her own heart. Rage, determination, the absolute refusal to give up. They were going to war, not the clean, organized war of the history books, but a dirty, desperate fight for survival. They would strike from the shadows, hit the enemy where they were weak, and show them that humans did not surrender. The Cravaxians had made a terrible mistake when they destroyed New Terra. They had awakened something in Maya Collins that her peaceful years as a cargo pilot had buried deep. They had reminded her what she really was underneath the role of mother and wife. She was a weapon. And now that weapon was pointed straight at them. Outside the window, ships were being loaded with troops and supplies. The war machine of Earth was grinding into motion, preparing for the fight of humanity's existence. Maya Collins and her team would be the tip of that spear, the ones who went into the dark places and did the things that needed doing. The Cravaxians thought they had conquered another weak species. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The team gathered in the briefing room deep inside Luna Station. Maya stood at the front, looking at the 15 people who would follow her into danger. Each one was a specialist. Each one had lost something to the Cravaxian advance. And each one had volunteered for this mission knowing they might not come back. Lieutenant Jake Morrison was her second in command. He was a former Special Forces soldier with sharp eyes and a reputation for finding creative solutions to impossible problems. Next to him sat Sergeant Lisa Park, an explosives expert whose fingers were always moving as if she was constantly planning where to place charges. Corporal Ben Wright handled computers and alien technology. He could break into almost any system and make it do what he wanted. The rest of the team was equally skilled. Medics, snipers, demolition experts, and combat specialists. All of them the best at what they did. Maya activated the holographic display in the center of the room. An image of a planet appeared, rotating slowly in the air. "This is Centauri 4, she began. "The Kravaxians have a logistics base there. It coordinates supply runs for their advanced fleet, processes stolen resources from conquered worlds, and holds approximately 2,000 human prisoners from the colony raids." She zoomed in on the base. It was huge, covering hundreds of square miles with warehouses, barracks, defensive weapons, and a shield generator that protected it from orbital bombardment. "That is a fortress," Jake said, studying the image. "Heavy defenses, shields, and sitting right in the middle of enemy territory. How are we supposed to take that?" "We are not going to take it," Maya replied. "We are going to sneak in, cause chaos, free the prisoners, and get out before their fleet can respond." She highlighted a section of the base. "Intelligence found a weak spot in their sensor grid. We will insert using stealth drop pods, hit them fast and hard, then steal one of their own transport ships to escape." Lisa leaned forward. "What about the extraction? Even if we get a transport, their fleet will shoot us down." "Ben is going to hack their identification systems," Maya said. "He will make our stolen ship look like one of theirs. We will fly right past their patrol ships before they realize what happened." Ben smiled. "Their computer security is pretty weak. They have been conquering primitive species for so long, they do not expect anyone to fight back with technology." Maya continued the briefing, going over every detail of the mission. The team would split into 3 groups. Jake would lead the prisoner extraction. Lisa would take her demolition team to the power core and set it to explode. Maya would lead an assault on the command center to take control of the base systems and buy time for the others. They spent hours going over the plan, discussing contingencies, and memorizing the base layout. Maya made sure everyone understood their role and knew what to do if things went wrong, because things always went wrong in combat. That night, Maya went back to see Sophie. Her daughter was in their quarters trying to do homework but mostly just staring at the wall. She looked up when Maya entered. "Is it time?" Sophie asked quietly. "We leave in the morning," Maya said, sitting down beside her. Sophie did not cry. She had cried all her tears in the days after New Terra burned. Now she just looked tired and older than any 12-year-old should look. "Will you come back?" she asked. Maya wanted to promise that she would, but she had never lied to her daughter and was not going to start now. "I will do everything I can to come back. But this is dangerous work, Sophie. The people we are fighting, they do not take prisoners. They do not show mercy." "Then why are you going?" "Because 2,000 people are trapped in that base. They are scared and hurt and waiting for someone to save them. I have the skills to do it. I have the team to do it. If I do not go, who will?" Sophie was quiet for a moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small data chip. "Dad gave this to me before he went to work that day. He said it was for emergencies, that it had all his important files and messages on it. I've been too scared to watch it." Maya took the chip carefully as if it might break. "Do you want to watch it together?" Sophie nodded. Maya put the chip into her personal tablet and pressed play. Greg's face appeared on the screen, smiling the way he used to smile when he thought no one was watching. It was just a video diary. Him talking about his day at work, complaining about a difficult engineering problem, mentioning that Danny had aced another test. Then at the end, he looked directly at the camera and said something that made Maya's throat tight. "If anyone is watching this after I'm gone, know that I loved my family more than anything in the universe. Maya, Sophie, Danny, you 3 were the best thing that ever happened to me. And Maya, if something has happened, I know you will do what you do best. You will fight back. You will protect our daughter. You will make them pay." The video ended. Maya and Sophie sat together in silence, both of them crying now. Finally, Sophie spoke. "Go save those people, Mom. Make Dad proud." The next morning, Commander Maya Collins and her team boarded the stealth ship Shadowrunner. It was a new design, built specifically for special operations, fast, quiet, and packed with technology designed to avoid enemy sensors. As they left orbit, Maya looked back at Earth one last time. Somewhere down there, Sophie was watching the ship leave, probably scared but trying to be brave. Maya promised herself she would come back, not just for this mission but for all of them. Sophie had already lost her father and brother. She could not lose her mother too. The journey to Centauri 4 took 3 days. During that time, the team trained constantly, running through simulations of the mission until they could execute it perfectly. They checked their weapons, tested their armor, and went over the plan again and again. Jake came to talk to Maya on the second day. "The team is ready," he said. but they are scared. Most of them have never done anything like this before. Good, Maya replied. Fear keeps you sharp. Fear keeps you alive. It is the ones who are not scared that I worry about. Are you scared? He asked. Maya thought about that. Terrified. But I am also angry. And right now my anger is stronger than my fear. The Kravaxians have been winning for so long because no one has really fought back. Every species they conquered either surrendered or got destroyed trying to fight traditionally. We are going to do something different. We are going to show them that humans do not play by their rules. On the third day, they reached the Centauri system. The Shadowrunner slipped past the Kravaxian patrol ships like a ghost, its stealth systems making it almost invisible. They moved into position above Centauri 4 and Maya gave the order. All teams prepare for drop. Check your equipment one last time. Remember the plan, trust your training and watch each other's backs. She paused. The Kravaxians think we are weak. They think we will break like every other species. Let us show them how wrong they are. The drop pods were loaded and launched. 15 pods fell toward the planet like shooting stars, carrying 15 people who were about to start a war. Maya felt the pressure of high-speed descent pushing her into her seat. The pod shook and rattled around her. Then the retro rockets fired and the pod slammed into the ground. The door blew open and Maya was moving, weapon up, scanning for threats. Around her, the rest of the team was deploying from their pods. They were deep in enemy territory now, surrounded by thousands of Kravaxian soldiers. The odds were impossible. The mission was suicide. Maya smiled behind her helmet. Impossible odds were exactly what humans were good at. The drop pods hit the ground in a maintenance corridor that intelligence said was poorly guarded. Maya's pod door exploded outward and she rolled out with her weapon ready. Around her, the other 14 pods were opening and her team was deploying with military precision. Sound off, Maya said quietly into her communication system. One by one, her team reported in. Everyone had made it down safely. They were deep inside the Kravaxian base now, in the one spot where their sensors did not watch closely. It was time to move. The team moved through the corridors like shadows. Ben was in front with Maya, using his portable computer to disable security systems seconds before they would have detected the intruders. The Kravaxian base was massive, easily the size of a small city with hundreds of buildings connected by tunnels and walkways. Maya's team split up according to the plan. Jake took 8 people and headed toward the prison blocks where the human captives were being held. Lisa took 4 people toward the power core deep underground. Maya kept 2 soldiers with her and headed for the command center. The corridors were made for creatures much larger than humans. The Kravaxians stood nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and natural armor plating that covered their bodies. They were born warriors, bred for conquest and trained from birth to fight. Their empire had crushed 100 species and enslaved billions, but they had never fought humans before. Maya's group encountered their first patrol near the central hub. 6 Kravaxian soldiers walked down the corridor, carrying plasma rifles and talking in their harsh, clicking language. They looked confident, certain that nothing could threaten them here in the heart of their own base. Maya did not give them time to realize their mistake. She raised her weapon and fired. The railgun punched through the lead soldier's armor like it was paper. The others tried to react, but Maya's team was faster. 15 seconds later, all 6 Kravaxians were dead. Command center ahead, Maya whispered, stepping over the bodies. Ben, you are up. The tech specialist moved to the door controls. His fingers danced across his portable interface, cracking the alien security in seconds. These systems are actually pretty simple once you understand their logic, he said. Everything is controlled from the top down. No backups, no redundancy. They really do not expect anyone to resist them. The door slid open. Inside the command center, 3 Kravaxian officers turned in surprise. They were reaching for their weapons when Maya's team shot them down. Ben immediately ran to the main computer console and started working. I am in their network, he said, his eyes reflecting the alien symbols flowing across the screens. They do not even encrypt their data. It is like they cannot imagine anyone being able to read it. His fingers flew across the interface. I am locking down the barracks, sealing the armory and rerouting their atmospheric controls. Also downloading their entire database for later analysis. Maya's communicator crackled. Commander, this is Jake. We have reached the prison blocks. You need to see this. Maya pulled up the video feed from Jake's helmet camera on her display. What she saw made her blood boil. The prison blocks were worse than the intelligence reports had indicated. Humans from a dozen different colonies were packed into cells designed for half their number. Many were injured, all were starving, and the look of despair on their faces was heartbreaking. "Get them out," Maya ordered. "All of them." "That is going to slow us down significantly," Jake warned. "Many of them can barely walk. I do not care." "We are not leaving anyone behind." Lisa's voice cut into the channel. "Commander, charges are set on the power core. It will go critical on your signal. But we have a problem. A Kravaxian assault carrier just landed at the main pad. They are deploying heavy troops." Maya checked her tactical display. The carrier was unloading at least 200 soldiers, all of them heading toward the prison blocks. "They must have detected the intrusion somehow." "Jake, how long until you have the prisoners mobile?" Maya asked. 10 minutes minimum. Most of them cannot walk on their own. Lisa, can you buy us time?" "Can and will." "Park out." The channel went quiet. Maya turned to Ben. "Get me access to their communication system. I want to broadcast a message." "To who?" "Everyone." Ben worked for another minute, then nodded. "You are broadcasting on all Kravaxian military frequencies in this sector. The whole fleet will hear you." Maya keyed her microphone. She spoke in English, but she knew the Kravaxians had translation software. Her words would reach every ship, every base, every command post within 20 light years. "This is Commander Maya Collins of the United Earth Defense Force. You came to our worlds. You burned our cities. You killed our families. You thought we would break, that we would submit like every other species you have conquered." She paused, letting her words sink in. "You were wrong. This is what happens when you attack Earth. This is what happens when you make us angry. We do not surrender. We do not negotiate with terrorists. We hunt you down and we make you pay. This facility is just the beginning. Every base you have, every fleet, every occupied world, we are coming for all of them. And we are bringing humanity's real weapons with us. Not our ships or our guns, but our rage, our creativity, and our absolute refusal to ever give up." She cut the transmission. "Ben, destroy their communications array. Make sure no one can respond." "Done." The base shook as the first of Lisa's charges detonated. Warning sirens began wailing as the Kravaxians realized their power core was going critical. Maya's team fell back toward the prison blocks, fighting their way through confused and panicking defenders. The Kravaxian soldiers were tough and well-trained, but they had never faced an enemy like this. Maya and her team used tactics the aliens had never seen before. They set traps, created diversions, and used the base's own systems against its defenders. Every corridor became a killing zone. Every junction became an ambush point. They reached the prison blocks and linked up with Jake's group. 2,000 human prisoners were moving as fast as they could toward the landing pads where the transport ships were parked. Many were supporting wounded friends. Some had to be carried. Maya's team formed a defensive line, holding back waves of Kravaxian soldiers as the civilians escaped. The fighting was brutal and close. The aliens were stronger, but the humans were faster and more adaptable. For every human who fell, 5 Kravaxians died. The power core exploded with a blast that shook the entire facility. Huge sections of the base began collapsing. Maya grabbed her communicator. "All teams fall back to the transport ship. Move now." The team and the freed prisoners ran through the chaos. Buildings were falling around them. Secondary explosions were going off as ammunition stores and fuel tanks cooked off. The Kravaxians were more interested in escaping than fighting now. They reached the transport ship, a massive vessel designed to carry troops. Ben had already hacked its systems and had the engines warming up. The prisoners crowded aboard, packing themselves into every available space. Maya's team boarded last, providing covering fire until the loading ramp closed. The transport lifted off just as a major portion of the base collapsed into a crater. Jake came to stand beside Maya at the viewing port. "Hell of a first mission, Commander." Maya watched the Kravaxian base burn below them. Thousands of the enemy had died today. 2,000 humans had been saved. But the cost had been high. 3 of her team had not made it to the transport. Their sacrifice would be remembered. "It is a start," Maya said quietly. "Just a start." Ben's hacked identification codes worked perfectly. The Kravaxian patrol ships let them pass, believing they were seeing one of their own transports on a routine supply run. By the time the enemy realized what had happened, the transport was already jumping to hyperspace. The freed prisoners were crying, hugging each other, unable to believe they were actually free. Maya walked among them, offering what comfort she could. They asked about their colonies, about their families. Maya did not have good answers. Most of their homes were gone, destroyed by the same fleet that had taken New Terra, but they were alive. That was something. That was enough for now. As the transport ship carried them back toward Earth, Maya thought about her message to the Cravaxian fleet. She had declared war not just on behalf of Earth's military, but on behalf of every human who had lost someone to the Empire's advance. The Cravaxians would hear that message and they would laugh, because they had crushed stronger enemies before. Let them laugh. They would not be laughing for long. Maya Collins had just shown them what one small team of humans could do. Soon there would be more teams, more missions, more strikes against the Empire. The Cravaxians had awakened something in humanity that they would come to regret. They had made it personal. The war consumed the next 3 years like a slow-burning fire. Maya's successful raid on Centauri 4 became the model for dozens more operations. Her Special Operations Division grew from one team of 15 to 50 teams spread across the entire war zone. Each team struck at the Cravaxian Empire with precision and fury, freeing slaves, destroying supply lines, and showing the galaxy that humanity refused to surrender. But every victory came with a price written in blood. Maya stood in the memorial garden on Luna Station, reading names carved into black stone. Lieutenant Jake Morrison, killed during a raid on the Paxar shipyards when his transport was shot down. Sergeant Lisa Park died holding off an enemy counterattack so civilians could escape from Terminus Colony. Corporal Ben Wright lost when his reconnaissance ship was ambushed in the Outer Rim. The list went on and on. Hundreds of names. Hundreds of people Maya had commanded, trained with, fought beside. Each death felt like losing a piece of herself. The Cravaxian Empire was finally breaking. Their advance had stopped, then reversed. Human forces, combined with allies from other species who had suffered under Cravaxian rule, were pushing the Empire back system by system. The aliens who had seemed invincible 3 years ago were now retreating in chaos. Their capital system was under siege. Their fleet was scattered across 100 battlefields. Their emperor, the cruel tyrant who had ordered the destruction of countless worlds, was dead. Maya had killed him herself during a desperate boarding action 6 months ago, putting a railgun round through his armored chest while his guards died around him. The war was ending. Humanity was winning, but Maya felt no joy, only exhaustion that went deeper than her bones. "Mom?" Maya turned to see Sophie walking toward her through the garden. Her daughter was 15 now, tall and beautiful, and somehow both stronger and more fragile than she had been 3 years ago. Sophie wore the gray uniform of the civilian corps, having spent the war years working in refugee services on Earth. "Hey, sweetheart." Maya pulled her daughter into a hug. "Should you not be in class?" "They canceled classes. The ceasefire was announced an hour ago." Sophie pulled back and studied her mother's face. "It is over, Mom. We won." Maya looked back at the memorial wall. "Did we? Sometimes I am not sure anymore." They walked through the garden together, past monuments to destroyed ships and lost battles. Earth had survived. The planet had driven back an empire that had conquered 100 worlds. Humanity had proven it could stand against the galaxy's greatest threats. But the cost was measured in millions of lives, in destroyed colonies, in families torn apart. Maya thought of Greg and Danny, of the simple life they had built on New Terra. That life was gone forever, burned away in the opening hours of the war. "Admiral Hayes wants to see you," Sophie said quietly. "Something about your next assignment." Maya shook her head. "There is not going to be a next assignment. I am done, Sophie. I have given enough." "We have all given enough." "She said you would say that." Sophie smiled slightly. "She also told me to mention that the Cravaxian successor states are already fighting each other over what is left of the Empire. There are still millions of human prisoners scattered across their former territory who need help getting home." Maya closed her eyes. Of course there were. The Empire had collapsed too quickly, leaving power vacuums across hundreds of systems. Those prisoners would need protection, would need someone to negotiate for their release and ensure they made it safely back to human space. "She is not asking you to fight anymore," Sophie continued. "She wants you to help coordinate the peacekeeping forces. Someone needs to make sure the peace treaty is enforced, that the prisoners come home, and that all the allied species stay unified now that the common enemy is defeated." "That is not a military job," Maya said. That is politics. Maybe that is what we need now. Someone who knows the cost of war, who can make sure we do not have to fight another one. Sophie took her mother's hand. Someone who understands what we are really fighting for. Maya looked at her daughter, seeing Greg in the shape of her eyes and Danny in her gentle smile. They were gone, but parts of them lived on in Sophie, in the way she saw the world, in her belief that things could be better, in her determination to help people even when it was hard. "What do you think I should do?" Maya asked. "I think you should keep protecting people. Just maybe use diplomacy instead of explosives this time." Sophie squeezed her hand. "And I think you should come home more often. I missed you, Mom. I know the work was important, but I missed you." "I missed you too," Maya said softly. "Every single day." They walked back toward the administrative section where Admiral Hayes had her office. Maya knew she would accept whatever assignment the Admiral offered, not because she wanted to, but because the job needed doing and she had the experience to do it right. That was who she was. That was who she had always been, a soldier, a protector, someone who stood between danger and the people she cared about, no matter what it cost her personally. Admiral Hayes was waiting in her office with a stack of data pads. "Commander Collins, thank you for coming. Sophie said you have an assignment for me." "I do." Hayes gestured to a chair. "The war is over, but the peace is fragile. The Kravaxian Empire has broken into a dozen smaller states, each one claiming to be the legitimate successor. They are already fighting each other, and there are human prisoners caught in the middle of their civil wars." "How many prisoners?" Conservative estimates put the number at around 5 million, spread across 200 worlds. Hayes pulled up a star chart showing the former Empire's territory. "We have ships and troops to conduct rescue operations, but we need someone to coordinate everything. Someone who understands military operations but can also navigate the political complexities of dealing with multiple alien governments. You want me to become a diplomat? I want you to become whatever is necessary to bring those people home." Hayes met her eyes. "You have done more for this war effort than almost anyone else. Your raids broke the Kravaxian supply lines and freed thousands of prisoners. Your tactics became the blueprint for how we fought this war. Now I need you to help us win the peace." Maya thought about the 5 million people still trapped in former Kravaxian space. 5 million people who had probably given up hope of ever seeing Earth again. 5 million families waiting for news of their loved ones. "What kind of authority would I have?" she asked. "Full diplomatic credentials backed by the United Earth government and our allied species. You would command a task force of ships and have the power to negotiate directly with the successor states." Hayes slid a datapad across the desk. "It is a 3-year assignment minimum. Probably longer. It will be dangerous, frustrating, and there is no guarantee of success." "Sounds familiar," Maya said with a slight smile. "There is one more thing." Hayes pulled up another file. "We are establishing a permanent peacekeeping force, a joint military unit made up of ships and soldiers from Earth and our allies. Its job will be to prevent any one power from dominating this region of space again. They are going to need leadership, people who understand both combat and diplomacy. I want you to help set it up." Maya picked up the datapad and scrolled through the details. It was ambitious, maybe impossibly so. Building a lasting peace from the ashes of the worst war the galaxy had seen in centuries. Making sure the sacrifices of the last 3 years meant something. "I will do it," she said, "on one condition." "Name it." "I get regular time off to be with Sophie. Real time, not just a few hours between crises. She is 15 years old, and she has spent the last 3 years without her family. I will help you build this peace, but I will not sacrifice what is left of my family to do it." Hayes nodded. "Agreed. Your first task force ship does not leave for 2 weeks anyway. Spend that time with your daughter. After that, we will work out a schedule that lets you do both jobs." Maya stood and offered her hand. "Thank you, Admiral." "No, Commander. Thank you. For everything you have done. For everything you have sacrificed." Hayes shook her hand firmly. "The Kravaxians made a terrible mistake when they attacked New Terra. They woke up a warrior who reminded the galaxy what humanity really is." Maya left the office and found Sophie waiting outside. Her daughter looked up hopefully. So it looks like your mother is going to become a diplomat." Sophie grinned and hugged her. "Does this mean you will be home more?" "It means I will try my best to be." Maya hugged her back tightly. "Come on. We have 2 weeks before I have to leave. Let us go do something normal. Maybe visit Earth, see the ocean. Remember what we are fighting to protect? As they walked through Luna Station toward the transport bays, Maya felt something shift inside her. The rage that had driven her for 3 years was still there, but it was quieter now. The grief over Greg and Danny would never go away, but it had transformed into something else. A determination to make sure their deaths meant something, a commitment to building a better future. The Kravaxian Empire had destroyed her family and tried to destroy humanity. Maya had shown them Earth's true weapons, not just the ships and guns and soldiers, but the spirit that refused to break, the creativity that found solutions when none seemed possible, the compassion that risked everything to save strangers, and most important, the determination to build something better from. 5 years after the ceasefire, Maya Collins stood on the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel Unity, watching a transport ship full of freed prisoners depart for Earth. It was the 300th such transport she had sent home in her time as head of the Prisoner Recovery Task Force. 300 ships carrying over 2 million people back to human space. But there were still 3 million more waiting to be freed. The work was harder than fighting had ever been. At least in combat, you knew who the enemy was and what needed to be done. Diplomacy was different. It required patience Maya had never known she possessed, the ability to negotiate with people she despised, and the willingness to accept small victories when she wanted complete success. The Kravaxian successor states were a mess. 12 different governments, each claiming to be the rightful heir to the empire, each one holding human prisoners they used as bargaining chips. Maya had to deal with all of them, playing them against each other, offering trade agreements and security guarantees in exchange for prisoner releases. It was exhausting work, but it was working. Slowly, steadily, the prisoners were coming home. Sophie was 20 years old now, studying xenopolitics at the university on Earth. She visited whenever Maya's ship was near the home system, and they would spend days together just talking about everything and nothing. Those visits kept Maya going when the work seemed impossible. The door to the observation deck opened and Commander Carlos Rivera entered. He was Maya's second in command, a younger officer who had fought in the final year of the war and understood both combat and diplomacy. He had proven invaluable over the last 5 years. "We just received word from the Kravaxian Fourth State," Carlos said. "They are willing to release the prisoners from the Helion camps, but they want something in return." "What do they want?" Maya asked, though she already knew it would be something difficult. "Protection. One of the other successor states has been making threats, talking about reunifying the empire by force. The Fourth State wants us to guarantee their independence," Maya sighed. This was the constant problem. The successor states all wanted Earth's protection, but they were also the same people who had run the empire that destroyed New Terra. Part of her wanted to let them fight among themselves, to destroy each other the way they had destroyed so many other species. But that would mean leaving the prisoners to suffer. "How many prisoners are in the Helion camps?" she asked. "Intelligence says about 40,000. 40,000 lives. 40,000 people who had been held captive for years, waiting for someone to save them." Maya thought of the prisoners she had freed during her first raid on Centauri 4, remembered the look in their eyes when they realized they were actually going to survive. "Set up a meeting with the Fourth State's ambassador," Maya said. "We will negotiate terms." The negotiations took 3 weeks. The Fourth State wanted a formal defense treaty, which Maya could not provide without approval from Earth's government. Instead, she offered a compromise. Earth would establish a peacekeeping station in their space and conduct regular patrols. It was not a guarantee of protection, but it was enough to make any potential attacker think twice. In exchange, all prisoners in Fourth State territory would be released immediately. Not just the ones in the Helion camps. The deal was struck. 2 weeks later, Maya watched as 60,000 human prisoners boarded transport ships. Many were in poor health. All were traumatized. But they were going home. That night, Maya sat alone in her quarters looking at pictures of Greg and Danny. 7 years since New Terra burned. 7 years of war and peace, of fighting and negotiating, of trying to make their deaths mean something. She wondered what they would think of her now. Greg had always said she was the bravest person he knew. But would he think negotiating with the Kravaxians was brave or foolish? Danny had wanted to be a doctor, to heal people instead of hurting them. Would he be proud that she was choosing diplomacy over violence? Maya would never know. All she could do was keep working, keep bringing people home, and try to build a peace that would outlast her. The next year brought new challenges. 3 of the successor states formed an alliance and started making aggressive moves toward their neighbors. The peacekeeping force Maya had helped establish was stretched thin, trying to prevent the outbreak of a new war. Several times the situation came close to exploding into open conflict, but Maya kept negotiating. She met with leaders who had ordered the deaths of millions. She made deals with governments she hated. She swallowed her pride and her anger and did what needed to be done to keep the peace. And slowly, prisoner by prisoner, transport by transport, she brought them home. Sophie graduated from university and immediately joined the diplomatic corps. Maya tried to talk her out of it, tried to convince her daughter to choose a safer career, but Sophie was stubborn, just like her parents. "You taught me that protecting people matters more than being safe," Sophie said when she received her first assignment. "You spent 7 years bringing prisoners home. Now I want to help make sure no one becomes a prisoner in the first place." Maya could not argue with that logic, even though it terrified her to think of Sophie in dangerous situations. She had already lost so much of her family. The thought of losing Sophie, too, was almost unbearable. But she let her daughter go because that was what you did when you loved someone. You let them choose their own path even when it scared you. 8 years after the ceasefire, Maya achieved something she had started to think was impossible. She negotiated the release of the last group of human prisoners, still being held by the Kravaxian successor states. It was a small group, only 300 people, held in a remote facility by a minor warlord who had been using them as leverage in his own political games. The negotiation took 6 months and required calling in favors from a dozen different governments. But finally, the warlord agreed to release them. Maya personally led the recovery mission. She wanted to look those last prisoners in the eye and tell them they were going home. When the transport landed at the facility and the prisoners came aboard, many of them could not believe it was real. They had been captive for nearly a decade, had given up hope of ever seeing Earth again. "You are really from Earth?" one old man asked, tears running down his face. "You came all this way for us?" "Yes," Maya said simply, "and we are taking you home." The transport lifted off, carrying the last prisoners out of Kravaxian space. As they jumped to hyperspace, Maya felt something she had not felt in 8 years. Not quite peace, but close. A sense that maybe finally she had done enough. That the debt she owed to Greg and Danny, to all the people who died on New Terra, had been paid. Admiral Hayes was waiting when the transport arrived at Earth. The Admiral was older now, retired from active duty but still involved in government work. She shook Maya's hand on the docking platform. "You did it," Hayes said. "Every single one of them home. 4.5 million people." "It took 8 years," Maya replied. 8 years for something that should have been done in 8 months. It took as long as it took. What matters is you did not give up. Hayes gestured toward the observation window where Earth rotated below. "The government wants to give you a medal, probably several medals. There is talk of naming a ship after you." Maya shook her head. "I do not want medals or ships. I just want to go home and see my daughter." "I understand." Hayes smiled. "But there is one more thing you should know. The peacekeeping force you helped establish has grown into something bigger. 20 species working together to prevent another empire from rising. They are calling it the Galactic Security Council, and they want you to serve on it. For how long? As long as you are willing. The council needs people who understand both war and peace, who know the cost of both." Hayes paused. "But I told them you have already given enough. That you deserve to rest." Maya thought about it. Part of her wanted nothing more than to retire, to spend time with Sophie and try to rebuild some kind of normal life. But another part of her, the part that had driven her through 8 years of war and negotiation, knew that the work was not done. "I will serve on the council," Maya said, "but only part-time. Sophie is starting her diplomatic career, and I want to be there for her. I will not miss any more of her life." "Fair enough." Hayes extended her hand again. "Congratulations, Ambassador Collins. You earned it." 6 months later, Maya sat in the council chambers on Luna Station, representing Earth in discussions about galactic security. Around her sat representatives from 24 species, all of them working together to prevent another war like the one that had nearly destroyed them all. It was not perfect. There were disagreements, conflicts, and moments when it seemed like the whole system would fall apart. But it was working. The galaxy was at peace, more or less. The Kravaxian successor states were slowly becoming legitimate governments instead of warlord territories. Trade was flowing again. Refugees were going home. Sophie was assigned to the embassy on one of the Allied worlds, working to strengthen diplomatic ties and prevent future conflicts. She called Maya every week, telling stories about her work and asking advice on difficult situations. Those calls were the highlight of Maya's week one night. Maya returned to her quarters after a particularly difficult council session. She poured herself a drink and